Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar. We're excited to get rocking and rolling here. We're going to be talking about cold calling is not dead. We're going to be talking 3 cold calling techniques guaranteed to help you win. We're really going to be honing in on one. And truthfully, this is not. I'm not the cold calling wizard. I'm a wannabe. I'm a rookie when it's compared to my friend Jason coming from MarketSource. Jason, how the heck are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, we're excited to get into this. And I want you to maybe briefly. I think the crew here is seeing you on the screen, but maybe you can introduce yourself in just a minute. I want to go to the audience real quick. Guys, we want this to be engaging. We want this to be more about you than it is us. Jason knows what he's doing. I'm learning what I'm doing. We want to make sure you get what you need out of this webinar. Do you mind popping open that Q&A box down there at the bottom? Type your name and where you're from, just so you can start using that box. I'm going to be watching it. Jason's going to be watching. We'll be typing answers as we talk to you. Looks like we got some people coming in here. Bill coming from Connecticut. Mary coming from San Francisco. Good old San Fran. Perfect. Yeah, throw that in there. Your name, where you're coming from. Jason, while we're having people jump in here, can you take just a minute and introduce yourself and what you do at MarketSource?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. I've been in the cold calling game for about 27 years. Some of you are aware of the fact the first 14 years of my career, I was on Wall Street. So picture me in a gigantic boardroom, about 300 or 400 people, making $300-400 dials a day. Back then you had to do it with your finger. Now you've got all sorts of AI applications that can help make the phone calls for you. Fast forward to today. In the last 11 years, July is actually my 11-year anniversary, I've been with MarketSource. What do? We develop world-class inside and field sales teams for companies like HP, IBM, AT&T, Ford, GM, Chrysler, Mopar, Smart Witness, Whirlpool. Those are all clients that we have. I am actually calling on the top of the food chain in terms of the CEO, the CFO, the CSO, the CMO, the VPs of sales and marketing. So each and every year, I've been fortunate enough to set 250 meetings with those types of personas at some of the iconic brands that I just mentioned. So I hope the next 45 minutes or so are informative, and let's get it rolling.
Yeah, I love it, man. Like I said, you guys, Jason's, he knows what he's doing, been doing this for a long time. Let me introduce myself real quick. Stacy, guys, we've already got a handful of questions. Stacy, I appreciate that. She's already saying, hey, how do you get people to pick up the phone? Stacy, we're going to get into that in just a minute. But Gus, Rob, John, Tom, Kathy, Phil, Scott, Joe, thanks everybody for joining again. Keep the questions coming. And yes, Crystal, this will be recorded. So I'm Gabe Larson. I run growth here at Inside Sales. That means I've got some marketing and sales responsibilities. InsideSales.com. We love partnering with MarketSource. We provide some technology to do what Jason just said. Help sales reps build pipeline, close more deals. So you got a great synergy between Inside Sales and MarketSource. Let's go ahead and get in, you guys, because we want to hit some kind of contextual information before we start. And this one's been fun, Jason. I just did a video post. I've been doing more video on LinkedIn, and it's been fun to kind of see the engagement. I did one about you and I in this webinar, and I think we were sitting at, a couple hundred comments as of this morning, about 5,000 views, but it caused a little bit of a ruckus, right?
Yeah, just to give everybody who's not familiar, I got pulled into this conversation just a few days ago. And Gabe reached out to me and he said, hey, Jason, I need your help on something. I said, what's that? He goes, I need you to fill in for a webinar on Thursday. I said, all right, what's the topic? He said, cold calling. I said, done, count me in. Then I see this video on LinkedIn where Mario Martinez over at Vengresso and he are fighting about cold calling is dead versus the social selling is the only way to go. You should never pick up the phone and make a call to someone you don't know.
Yeah.
So it turned into a fiasco, but I actually learned a lot. And the funny thing that folks are going to start to see here in the next 40 minutes is we're a multi-channel firm too.
Yeah.
I personally like to send an email, follow it up with a phone call. Sometimes I'll leave a voice. Sometimes I don't. Then I'll reach out on social, usually LinkedIn, occasionally do an in-mail. Texting is real big now. Send a nice short text when you're on your way to an event, and then you rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So this is not an attack on Mario or on all the folks that are using the social selling platform. We actually have over 20 apps in our tech stack right now. This is to prove a point to those that are struggling, folks that are afraid of the phone, those that think you have to research everything 9 ways to Sunday, to the point that you have to know where somebody went to school, how many kids they have, do they sell direct or indirect. I can promise you, and my team who's out there somewhere can tell you about 35% of the meetings that I actually set, I call an 800 number. And I was kidding with Gabe yesterday. I said, I'll do a live webinar, let the audience choose who we're calling. Before they pick up the phone, just tell me what they do.
Yeah, we're doing it.
They sell cars, fine, go. And I'll go from the admin to the decision maker, hopefully a meeting and perhaps an opportunity and then a deal. So
yeah, how many of you would love to see Jason do that? Throw it in the chat box. Because I told Jason, we're on like Donkey Kong, man. We're doing that. So we're going to pull him on and we're going to do some cold calling, record it to show you guys how it is done there. But I love that context. I really think, as Jason mentioned, we've got to find a way to say, hey, multi-channel is important. And you guys need to be thinking about that, right? A lot of fun things you can do with social, with email, etc. But boy, guys, we've got to also realize that cold calling is not dead. You can pick up the phone and you can just call somebody, and you don't have to spend what the average time is right now. We've been tracking it. The average sales development rep has 72 accounts and does 17 minutes of research per account. I don't know if you need to do all that. You certainly don't need to do it on every call. So, Jason, you're getting a lot of people calling you out, man, saying, hey, they're ready to do this. So I hope you're ready to fulfill on that promise. So, Jason, I want to get into a couple of these conversations. You set it up a little bit, and I wanted to kind of put the cherry on top. I get multi-channel still important, but we're going into cold calling. What is it? Give me a quick thought here.
All right. Just to simplify things, I'm a huge believer in keep it simple, stupid. We are in a world where it's hashtag and hurry up and get to the point. Right. The people that I'm calling on, the CEO of a $100 billion company, like an HP or an IBM, they don't have time. Everyone's getting 125 emails a day. They're absolutely drowning in information. And when you think they're actually ignoring you, you're just number 17 on a list of 45 things they've got to get to. So believe me, you don't have to know where they went to school. You don't have to have or lead with a case study that's similar to what you're going to ask them to meet over. You have to get to the point. We're going to talk about this in a minute. You have to state whatever the problem is, i.e. what pain are they having. Yeah. You have to propose a potential solution, and then you have to ask for a time to meet. It's that simple, and we're going to prove that even with a webinar if we have to.
I love it. I love it. So that's a little bit about cold calling. You were getting into some of the tactics, and I want to ask you about this personalization because you and I were debating this, but sounds like the quick answer to is cold calling dead is?
No. In fact, and I want to elaborate on that just a bit. I actually think it's more profitable right now than at any point in 27 years. And you can hear the cries. I can hear Mario now. There's absolutely no way, because nobody picks up the phone. I will concede this. Fewer people are picking up the landline. That's a fact. Everybody should know that. However, those that are picking up a landline, when they glance over at caller ID and they don't recognize the number, believe me when I tell you from experience, they want to talk to somebody. They're curious to see who it is. And if you're a salesperson, what do you got? Yep. It's in your head that you think you're bothering them. You're not. If they're going to answer a landline in today's day and age, or even a cell phone most of the time, they're open. They're open for business. You just have to touch on a pain point that's relevant. You have to provide a solution that makes sense. And then you have to close. I'm closing on a cold call within 15 to 20 seconds. Is Monday or Tuesday at 9 better for you? Boom. So real quick, we talked about this yesterday. Here's why I think cold calling is exactly the same as knocking on your neighbor's door for a cup of sugar.
Okay.
Follow the verbiage, follow the cadence, pay attention to the hands. It's exactly the same. I'm knocking on my neighbor's door. It's Tuesday, 10 o'clock at night. His name's Joe. He's probably thinking, what the hell does Jason want on a Tuesday night? Might be a little concerned. So he opens the door, and I put my hands up. I said, hey, Joe, sorry to bother you. I know it's late, but what if you could help me out for a second? Yeah, what's going on, man? Look, I'm in the middle of making cookies for my niece and nephew. We're about to watch a movie, and I'm out of sugar. So is there any way that I could borrow a cup? And he looks at me like, that's it? That's all you want? Yeah, come on in. Oh, hey, Joe, listen, I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Make a move over to the cold call. If you guys want to know why you're sitting here right now and how I set 250 meetings a year and I'm closing in 20 seconds, this is exactly what I say. At the beginning of the call, we're not getting into the reason yet. We're not handling objections. We're not closing. This is how I open every single call to set 250 meetings a year.
Wow.
Good afternoon. It's Sarah at ABC. Can I help you? Oh, hey, Sarah. It's Jason here over at MarketSource. You know, I wonder if you could help me out for a second. Yeah, sure. I'll do what I can. What's up? Great. You know, I really appreciate that. Thank you. So let's let that sink in for a second. I'm going to repeat exactly what I just said again. You're knocking on Joe's door. You say, hey, I'm sorry to bother you. I know it's late. Can you help me out? Yeah, what's up? I'm making cookies next door. I'm out of sugar. Can I borrow a cup? Yeah, come on in. Really appreciate it, Joe. Thanks very much. Move over to the cold call. I'm calling an 800 number, and I'm glad to do this, Gabe, in a live webinar. And they answer the phone. Hey, it's Sarah at ABC. Can I help you? Oh, hey, Sarah. I act like I know her. Oh, hey, Sarah. It's Jason here. Never a last name. It's Jason here over at MarketSource. You know, I wonder if you could help me out for a second. So I'm acting like I'm lost and I'm in need of help, because if you're calling an 800 number, you are lost. You need to get pointed in the right direction. 99 times out of 100, she's going to say, sure, or yeah. The worst you'll get is, well, I'm awfully busy. What's this all about? Great. I really appreciate it, Sarah. Thank you. What that is at the end, by the way, let's take a quick second, Gabe, if you don't mind. This is very important.
Yep.
What's the psychology of what I just did? When I say, hey, it's Jason here over at MarketSource, wonder if you could help me out for a second. Sure, I'll do what I can. Great. I really appreciate that, Sarah. Thank you. She's in yes mode, or he. They've agreed to help me. In other words, I got permission to speak. And by the way, we're about to get into some other methods. They're all the same at the end of the day. She's given me permission to speak, and in a very courteous, professional manner, I said, thanks very much. Repeat her name. People love to hear their name, Sarah. Thank you. Meaning, she's in yes mode. The call's not going to end until she helps me. Why? She said she would, and I thanked her for it. Here's a big one. Actual fact. And then I'll turn it back to you, Gabe. If everybody who's watching, I think 800 some people are registered, millions more should see this, not because of me, but the message. If all you do, let's say you're a lousy reason for the call, you have no value prop whatsoever, you couldn't handle an objection to save your life, and you couldn't close your way out of a paper bag. If all you do is say, hey, could you help me out? Yeah, sure, I'll do what I can. Great. I really appreciate that, Sarah. Thank you. You'll double your production in 3 months. So if you're setting 5 meetings and you're struggling, you're going to 10, not sometimes, not most of the time. Every time you got to ask, can you help me? Sure. Thanks. I really appreciate it. End of story, double production. And ultimately, of course, that means, Gabe, you're going to double your commission.
Man, I think it's powerful. A couple of questions coming in, Jason. Let me interrupt you here for a second. We got Matthew mentioned, hey, with this opening line that you're attacking, is there a tone that you've got to be conscious of, or are you going to ruin it, or does it not matter? It really is just kind of about this help, getting help, asking for help concept. Thoughts on tonality here?
Great question. I'm a little amped up, so I'm trying to make sure in the green room here that everybody can hear me. But I can assure you I'm not talking this loud when I reach out to somebody. The most important thing is you got to be relaxed. You got to be in the moment. You got to be relaxed. Whether you like to stand or sit, it doesn't matter, but you got to be relaxed. So you got to sound conversational, just like when you're knocking on the door of Joe's house. Hey, Joe, I know it's late, but hey, man, can you help me out? Same sort of principle. Maybe I leave the hey, man out, and I say, hey, Sarah, like we know each other. It's Jason here over at MarketSource. Notice the pause. I wonder if you can help me out for a second, for a moment. Take your pick. I'm telling you, I've been doing this 10 years. 99 times out of 100, he or she will say, sure. Or, well, you caught me in the middle of something, I guess, like, what's going on? And I always say, hey, great, Sarah, Joe, Bob, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Meaning, you're in yes mode. I'm very courteous. The call's not going to end until you help me. Why? You said you would, and I thanked you for it. And by the way, this is an important point. Salespeople are notorious for never asking for help. They make so many mistakes, including launching into the reason for the call. Hey, Sarah, it's Jason here over at MarketSource. Listen, the reason I'm calling you today, click, done. Right away, you're shut out. I don't care how good you sound, what your voice is like, what your cadence is like, you're done. But when you say, hey, Sarah, it's Jason here over at MarketSource, I wonder if you could help me out for a second. She doesn't know, or he doesn't know, is this a customer?
Yep.
Is this a colleague? Is this a candidate? Is this somebody who I used to go to school with? I don't know, because salespeople, they don't ask for help, Gabe. They never do.
Yeah, they're too
so
big.
You're in a totally whole new league right from the start, and you only get one chance to make a first impression.
I love it. Let's keep going, man. We got some good questions here, so I want to dive into them. Michael's saying, okay, got it, Jason. What happens after you get transferred and go straight to voicemail? Do you consider it a waste of time dialing an 800 number just to get sent to a voicemail so many times a day?
That's another great question. For example, we have a partner that we use, Connect and Sell. Chris Beal, big shout out to you. They have the capability to make upwards of 1,000 calls a day. Every 5 or 6 minutes, you get connected to a key decision maker, and boom, you can have 10 or 15 pitches off in a day, sometimes more, which means if you're a lousy salesperson and you really need a lot of help, if you're talking to 5 times as many people as I am, somebody who might be really good, you might do as well or even better than I do.
Yeah. Yep.
The key point, and I'm glad that question was brought up, is I don't always have time, and neither do you, to leave a voicemail. So whether you're dialing with your finger or with something like a Connect and Sell, that's a choice. You can do a pre-recorded, which is I'm not a fan of, although I've seen it work. Most of the time, I can tell you, I don't leave a voicemail. The reason is I've got too much going on, too many people to get to. However, once you get transferred from Sarah, she says, oh, you're going to need to speak to Gabe. He's the guy that would handle that. As soon as Gabe picks up the telephone, do I say, hey, Gabe, it's Jason here over at MarketSource. Listen, the reason I'm calling you today is no. You do the same thing every time, and this is why it's so powerful. You start off with Gabe. You say, oh, hey, Gabe, it's Jason here over at MarketSource. I wonder if you could help me out for a second. Yeah, I'll do what I can. What's up? Because, he doesn't know. Is this a college buddy? Is this a candidate? Is somebody calling me to buy my product? I don't know. Salespeople don't ask for help.
Right.
So I say, hey, Gabe, it's Jason here over at MarketSource. Could you help me out? Yeah, I'll do what I can. Great, Gabe. Listen, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Then I move into the reason for the call. I've got Gabe in yes mode, just like I had with Sarah. Gabe is thinking, who the hell is this? It's certainly not a sales guy because they never ask for help. He thanked me for it, so he's very courteous. I'm very curious to hear what Jason wants.
You can move forward. So, Jason, you actually had a couple people call and wrote in, what happens when you call and immediately speak to your prospect? Do you still use the can you help me outline? And the answer, I think, to that call is yes, you do use that.
And again, another tremendous question, because we've had challenges with some of our programs and even our SDRs. You get the persona on the phone, because again, I'm calling the CEO of a $50 billion company or the VP of sales at a $200 billion company. In most minds, particularly folks that are brand new, some of the millennials, for example, they're intimidated.
Yep.
They're scared, you know what, because they're talking to somebody who's got a lot more experience, makes 100 times more than they do. So they think, gee, asking the VP of sales for help, that seems a little hokey. Wrong. You must do it again every single time. And if you don't double your production, I want everybody, by the way, if you don't double your production in the next 3 months, call Jason. Give him my number, my email address. Call me up and say, Jason, I think you're full of it. I'm only up 30%. Pretty good, 30%. But you said you were going to double it.
Yeah, that's the thing I've loved about Jason.
And I will spend an hour with that person, wherever they're from, and I guarantee it's going to come back. You didn't say it every time, did you? You said it sometimes, didn't you? And when you got transferred or the boss answered the phone because you called at 8 o'clock in the morning when no one else is in, you choked. You didn't have the nerve to say, hey, Mr. CEO, it's Jason here over at MarketSource. I wonder if you could help me out for a second. Guarantee he says almost every time, yeah, what's up? What's going on? Great, Mr. CEO. I don't say Mr., but great, Cole. That's the persona name we have for CEO. Great, Cole. Really appreciate you taking my call. Really appreciate the help. Thank you. It's that simple. And then I say, listen, by the way, write this down if you haven't already. I say listen after I thank them. So it's, could you help me out? Yeah, I'll do what I can. Great, I appreciate that. Thank you. Listen. It's a subtle command. It's another powerful tool. I'm not talking about listen to me. Listen. Because they'll literally lean in a little bit. They'll lean in, yeah. And then you state the reason I'm calling you today is, and then here comes the pain. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but it's very simple what I do, painfully simple, but it works.
And it sounds like it, man. Guys, keep asking questions, some good ones. A lot of people asking about Connect and Sell and getting a hold of people. Connect and Sell, great tool. You can also look at tools that allow you to have local presence phone numbers. That'll help you get the connect rates up a little bit. Jason, let's hit this question from John. Why not use your last name? It's pretty tactical. You mentioned, hey, you just said Jason. Why not say Jason and give the whole spiel?
In my opinion, there's a lot of research that backs this up. Way too formal. Yeah. Way too formal. For example, if I know Sarah or I ultimately am trying to get to the CEO, Bob, I don't need to use my last name.
Yep.
I've tried both over the years. As long as you're professional, you're courteous, you're asking for help, don't use your last name. Some people, for example, have very hard names to pronounce. So the secretary of the admin is going to put you on hold and say, yeah, I've got Gabe. Tell him I'll call him later. I don't even know who the hell that is because she can't pronounce your name. So just stick with the first name only.
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times, the slaughtering of the name, and it doesn't help. So, guys, if I don't get your question, we almost have 1,000 people in the webinar. You're almost breaking our technology here. We have about 300 questions, but I'm just going to go through it, Jason. I think we're going now rapid Q&A because, again, I want this to be about you. We've got a couple, though, devil advocates here, self-proclaimed devil advocates. One of them, Steven, he says, I got to play devil's advocate. Would you think this approach works for my prospects in oil and gas? Happen to be the busiest people in the world, according to them. Every phone call is an elevator pitch, so I usually skip even the how are you intro. Thoughts on working in different industries with this approach, Jason?
Every single industry that you could possibly imagine under the sun is exactly the way I do it. Everyone's busy. I said it. I may have said it at the beginning. The average executive, this was on LinkedIn the other day, has got 125 emails. A lot of times you get upset, you take it personal. Geez, he or she's not getting back to me. Maybe my pitch sucks, or I've got the wrong email template or something because I can't get a response. You're number 12 in a list of 45 things they need to do. That's why it's got to be multi-channel. Why it's got to be on average about 15 quality touches now. It used to be 7. Now it's 15 because there's too much information and everybody's gone mobile. So it takes more time to get through. But in terms of the question with oil and gas, same thing. Hey, can you help me out? Yeah, I'm awfully busy. What's up? Great. I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you. Listen, the reason I'm calling you today is here comes the pain. Here comes my solution. let's get together and talk about it. How about this time or that time? Boom. I just gave you, by the way, my technique. It's 4 easy steps.
Do you feel like, Jason, I want to get into your four steps here in just a minute. A lot of people asking about personalization, and you and I talked about this. I love the concept. This world we've gotten into, and this is my anti-social seller remark for the day. I usually only put a couple out there, but they've pushed so hard on doing research to find kind of kitschy little things like, hey, you like the Chicago Cubs. I saw that on Twitter or on Facebook. You got a dog named Marley, and somehow you're supposed to bring that into the conversation. And you and I were saying, look, man, it's not always about personalization for the individual. It can, and oftentimes it's more powerful to get personalization around the role. You're a VP of sales, and I work with you guys, and this is your problem. That's a pain for you. It is personalization, but it's not so personalized about the individual. I got a lot of people saying, what about personalization, Jason? What about thoughts on this? How you go down that path further?
You just made an excellent point. Somebody had a comment, and I'm stealing this, so whoever you are, the credit is to you. You personalize the persona, and we're big about it here, but we call it something different. Personalize the persona, and I'm going to get to the social selling crowd in a second. Believe me, you're going to be surprised what I have to say. Personalize the persona, meaning, what's the CFO most concerned with? Cost of sale, cost of acquisition. What's the CMO marketing concerned with? Digital transformation. What's the VP of sales concerned with? Typically, I got a number, I need to beat it. Every persona has a certain pain point or a certain topic of interest, if you will. I have done this for the last 11 years, and it goes even back before that when I was on Wall Street. I'm more of a fan, although I can understand. For example, here's a shout out for Chad Burmeister at ScaleX. They can personalize, send out 100 connections on LinkedIn and make a couple of hundred calls through Connect and Sell in a given day. Huge fan of the idea. The challenge is going to be, fast forward a year from now, AI becomes commoditized. Every application is pulling who went to school where. We're going to reach a point where a CEO is going to say, you know, Jason, you're the 10th guy or gal today that pointed out where the hell I went to school. So AI, or the commoditization of AI, it might be cool now, but at some point, if we're not pulling different things other than where you went to school or how many salespeople you got or an article you just wrote, there's going to be a sea of the sameness. But what's never going to go away is the pain that a persona has.
I love it.
You'll almost never find a CFO that doesn't want to get his cost of sale down. Guys, so if you reach out and you say, Mr. and Mrs. CFO, I understand because I'm connected to a number of your directors, there's a social selling tip. If you're trying to get to the CFO, connect on LinkedIn one layer down. And once you connect, not right away, a couple of weeks go by, say, hey, Gabe, really appreciate the connection. By the way, I've heard that your cost of sale is way too high. Is there any effort internally to bring that down? Well, as a matter of fact, there is. We had a meeting the other day, and the CFO was ranting and raving about firing people because we're too bloated. The SG&A is through the roof. Really? So I start pulling casual questions from a layer down below that CFO. So then when I reach out, I'm not shy about saying, hey, once I get through the can you help me out stuff, listen, the reason I'm calling you is I'm connected to a half a dozen of your directors. And I understand through them that your cost of sale is way too high. It just so happens that we've got a program, yada, yada, yada. Here comes the benefit or the solution. And before you know it, we're getting together because of what I learned one layer down.
Yeah, powerful.
Now, let me follow up before I forget and we move on. In terms of the social selling crowd in personalization.
Here we go.
There's a raging debate internally. There's a raging debate right here. We have a choice to make. Yep. We can devote a huge amount of time knowing the prospect, everything about the industry, who their customers are they direct or indirect? We could, and 55 other things. There's an enormous investment of time and resources there. Or whether you're dialing with your finger or you're using something like ScaleX, Connect and Sell. There are other, Sales Loft. There's 20 different tech stacks, by the way, or apps in our tech stack. I'm a huge believer in everything outside in a multi-channel approach of cold calling. So there are so many ways to reach out, but you've got to devote all that time. So does it make more sense to make a couple of hundred calls a day, knowing the CFO's pain? Got to get that cost of sale down. The CMO, digital transformation's a mess. I'm getting no LinkedIn leads. Nothing's happening on Twitter. Do I come back to him or her with a solution to that? Or do I spend a heck of a lot of time personalizing, which in my opinion, at the end of the day, it's not worth it. Yeah. I'm sorry to all the people out there that are invested in it. I know there's a lot of money on the line, but I'd rather call and personalize to the persona, at least for now, rather than gather all this information and waste a whole lot of time. Although I will admit, here's the irony, folks. When you have 27,000 connections like I have, or if you've got a couple of thousand, you're learning more about your prospect all the time. The applications on social are getting better and better. They know more about you, you know more about them. So it's almost like, is it really necessary to go through all that? Jason, I've been seeing you post stuff for 6 months, and you've been commenting on some of my stuff. Do you really need to point out everything about me? You already kind of know who I am. I don't think it's necessary.
Wow. Yeah, man, you hit a couple points. You got people asking, kind of hitting you back. Let's see if we can go through a couple of them here. First one coming from David. You started with research. We'll get to social maybe in just a minute, so I want to jump back to research. So David says here, how much research are you doing before you call someone? For example, always a first touch, or always you do some thoughtful research before you send out an email. It sounds like you're advocating not the anti-research, but find a balance, because man, it's a little bit of a waste. It can be a waste of time.
All right, I want to repeat something just for the sake of reinforcing what I said earlier. You don't have to agree with what I say. Throw it in the trash if that makes sense to you. I'm simply here today to say, look, the approach that I'm using and the team around us, I'm setting 250 meetings a year with CFOs, CEOs of $100, $200 billion companies, our inside and our field sales teams around the world. In 1 year, with the same philosophy that I'm trying to share with you today, in 1 year, we sold $7 billion of net new revenue for our clients. If we're pushing that kind of revenue and growth, both direct and indirect, maybe it works. So I'm here to tell you, I can call an 800 number, and so can you. I can personalize the persona. I love that term, and so can you. Now, in some cases, let's say I'm flying to Boston and I'm trying to get with the CEO of company XYZ or for one of our BDs, and it's been 2 years, no luck, tried everything. Contacted, touched him 50, 100 times. Maybe Jason should know where he went to school. Maybe Jason should know groups that he belongs to or charities that he donates to. Maybe. In some cases, I'll do that. But in most cases, I'm too busy. And guess what? So are your prospects. So say, hey, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. I'm going to be in Boston on Thursday only. I think I can solve problem A with solution B. Can we get together for lunch or coffee on Monday, say 10 o'clock, or Tuesday at 11? Which is better for you? Take your pick. That, in my opinion, I'm touching on the pain. He's busy, she's busy, I'm busy. Can we get together and solve a problem or not? Yeah, knowing where he went to school, what products they sell, what donations they've made, it's secondary.
Yeah. Do you find, Jason, how do you get to that? That this seems to be, you got some people who are a little non-believers. A lot of people, this is really resonating, this personalize around the persona concept. A lot of people are saying, how do you find that out? We got Kat here saying, without spending too much time researching, how do I know that pain point? And I think, Kat, one of Jason's points is, I don't think you can find the pain for the persona on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Snapchat. That's going to take some time of you. And Jason, I'd love to hear your point. You got to know your customer. You got to go walk a day in their shoes. You got to spend some time with your customer, spend some time with your product team. That doesn't come from social, I don't think. Jason, thoughts on that?
Absolutely. We do a lot of what's called event-based marketing. or EBM. You hear a lot about account-based marketing. We do a lot of EBM. If you're a C-level executive that's listening to me right now, or you're a brand new salesperson that wants to find out, what you should be doing and what you should not be doing, absolutely crucial. We're at least 12 and probably closer to 15 events every single year. So I'm working at least one, sometimes two events every single month. Once you get into the event circuit, in addition to the research that you'll do from all the publications, from Google Alerts, the new Sales Navigator on LinkedIn is incredible. There's a million ways to do research. I like to do it off hours. I'm doing it on Saturday or Sunday at 10 o'clock at night. I want to know where the pain is in that industry, within that company, from information that I gather from multiple sources. And again, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, whether you agree with this or not, let me make this point. I would rather personalize the persona. I'd rather know the pain of that company. My cost of sales too high. I'm getting no leads off of LinkedIn and Twitter. I just got my ass kicked in the channel and I lost a third of my customers to another telco, i.e. there's going to have to be a recuperation of lost market share. You got to have the nerve, I could use another word, but you got to have the nerve to call them out on the pain, face to face if necessary. Hey, I understand you lost a huge amount of market share last year. The reason I'm standing in front of you, or the reason I flew in from New York or Seattle or Boston, is I've got an idea on how we could recapture that market share. Can we go grab a cup of coffee here in about an hour, or maybe do lunch tomorrow? Which one of those is better for you? Boom.
Wow. Man, we have so many questions, Jason, and our time's running short here, so we're going to have to start wrapping. I have some people, I had Anna just write and say, hey, was this the entire webinar just to talk about the opening? Sorry, Anna, we actually wanted to get to a little bit more. I'm flashing on the screen, and I'll have Jason take you through it in just a minute. Guys, we literally have hundreds of questions. We've answered like 15 of them. So, Anna, apologize. I wanted to go through more, but I also wanted to answer the 100 of people who are trying to get an answer of such an important part of the conversation, which is getting the intro or the preface right. So, Anna, I promise we'll do some more follow-ups and get into it. Two more questions, Jason, we've got to let you go. One is a lot of people are asking about other methodologies. We've got our Sandler commit play, and we were going to review some of these. Chris Bill, you had mentioned it, Connect and Sell. Can you just, without going into it, is this the only play that works in cold calling? Do you find there's some others, thoughts on other strategies?
Yeah, for the sake of time, and by the way, the demand for this is obviously huge. There's going to be, we've already talked, Gabe, about 3 or 4 follow-up webinars where we'll break it all down for you. This is all about the open. It's the mindset that it doesn't have to be difficult. You don't have to know everything about the person that you're calling. It does make sense to personalize the persona. I mean, you got to know where the pain is. It's so important to stress. You got to get a commitment to proceed. Connect and Sell, for example, they say, do you have 27 seconds to understand why I'm calling you? That's asking for permission. Sandler, which is what you guys use, you're looking to get a commitment. If we don't, we're not on the same page in the next minute, 2 minutes, 40 seconds, I won't bother you, or something to that effect. Gabe, you're the expert in that. I've tried several different methods. In my opinion, asking for help, you're tapping into a human emotion. And if you're doing it face-to-face, even better. I'm 6'3", 240. I'm sure there's a lot of very handsome, very beautiful women out there that if you walk up to somebody and you say, hey, my name's Jason or Sarah or Steve or Sal, I wonder if you could help me out for a moment. It's even more powerful in person, because who's going to tell a big guy like me, nah, I don't think so. They're going to say, yeah, well, what's up? Same thing with a beautiful woman or even an average person who's got a great personality. Once you get them into yes mode, the conversation is totally different. And by the way, last point, Gabe, and I know this is run long. The reason why so many people watching are so anxious, have so much anxiety, is when you launch into a call, particularly if there's too much information that you're being told you have to gather, you get really nervous. You're intruding on their day. When someone calls you out of the blue, you don't like it. Neither do they. But if someone called you and said, hey, you got 27 seconds to understand why I'm calling, or hey, it's Jason here over at MarketSource. You know, I wonder if you could help me out for a second. It's a totally different ballgame because once they say yes, they've given you the floor. They're saying, what do you got? I'm okay with you telling me whatever it is, and there's a possibility you might be a salesperson. So give it to me. Yep. And then when you thank them, that's the tie down in that you don't necessarily get the lead. I get my rear end kicked all the time, but you're going to get something. You're going to get a referral. Now it's not me. Talk to her. She's the one you need to talk to. Or you know what? We just had a terrible quarter. Give me 90 days. And we'll talk about that in another webinar. How do you handle an objection? Here's a teaser. I have one response for every objection. I don't have any money. I got to talk to my wife. We just had a bad quarter. I've heard that from every sales guy that's called me in the last 12 months. I say one thing. You probably have 17 rebuttals for I'm not interested. I have one response for every objection on the planet. And I hope we get into that in the next webinar.
Oh man, he's gonna leave us cliffhanging here. I love it. I love it. Man, if you can't tell, you guys, Jason definitely knows his stuff. Jason, let's wrap up. I put on screen because we had a couple people saying, hey, you know, I get kind of the opening, but I'm trying to visualize how that flows a little further. And I don't know, maybe you don't have to necessarily read it, but maybe one more time while everyone's looking at the screen here, walk us through how you take that intro and then dovetail it into your kind of problem solution and then next step here. Can you?
Yeah, real quick. I've got 4 steps to every call. The first one is the open. Obviously, I'm asking for help. You say, I'll do what I can. Great. Sarah, Joe, Gabe, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Super important. If everybody listening will just do that, I guarantee you'll double your production and ultimately your commission. If you don't, come at me. Tell me I'm full of it. We'll eventually dive in and find out you were only doing it sometimes. The first is the open. The second is the pain or the problem. The third is the solution. The fourth is the close. So, hey, can you help me out? Sure, I'll do what I can. Great, Gabe. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Listen, the reason I'm calling you today, and I think you might have put the healthcare example up on the board there.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not in healthcare, but let's assume I am. Listen, the reason I'm calling you today is most companies in your area are very upset with the rising, skyrocketing cost of healthcare. Yeah, tell me about it. Why? What's this all about? Well, it just so happens that we've put together a solution for companies like you that could reduce your premiums by as much as 37%. By the way, don't use 40 or 45 or 50. Use 41, 36, 27, because it creates that's an awfully interesting number. They start listening with more intent. So I have a solution that could reduce your premiums by as much as 37%. And I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee. I'd love to buy you lunch. I'd love to get together for dinner. I'd like to do a webinar. Always give a time. Next Tuesday at noon or Wednesday at 1. Which of those two is better for you? That's it. Then when I get an objection, and I do, by the way, when I do what's up on the screen, a third of the time after 27 years of doing this, right away, no objection. 2/3 of the time, I get a soft objection because of how I open the call. But it'll be, this sounds interesting, but I'm too busy. Call me in 3 months. When I get the objection, I have the same rebuttal. We will talk about that hopefully soon. And then instead of introducing anything new, I go right back to the pain. I'm digging on that pain, and I'll give you a clue of what I say at that point. Write this down, folks. Again. So after I say, can you help me out? I say, listen. I state the pain, the problem. I offer up my potential solution. I close on an alternate time because you don't want a yes or no on the meeting. You want is Wednesday or Thursday at 1 better. Give them a choice. When they hit me with the objection, 2/3 of the time, I have the same response every single time, no matter what it is. Once they go, oh yeah, or well, tell me something I haven't heard or whatever it is, I go back to the pain. So I'll say again, comma, you and I both know that healthcare premiums are going through the roof. And it just so happens, Gabe, that I put together a program that could lower your premiums by as much as 37%. So, hey, why don't we go ahead and get together for lunch? How about Wednesday or Thursday at 1? Which of those two are better for you? So just to summarize real quick, I didn't introduce anything new. I went right back to the pain. Once I get to the second and third objection, I have one extra bullet that I use. That's it. I never go more than the same rebuttal for every objection and one extra bullet once I'm 2, 3, 4 objections deep. So if you think you need a 4-inch binder of rebuttals for every objection on the planet, I'm telling you right now, that's why you're choking. You're trying to think and say too much. What you say, or no, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Love it. I love it, man. Yeah, Jason, you've made some enemies here with your cliffhanger on your one answer for all objections, but I'm sorry, folks. I'm not Jason. You're going to have to take that up with him. Let's wrap this, Jason. Couple people asking, look, if we want to continue the conversation, I think Jason and I would both be offended if you did not add us on LinkedIn. Please do that. Know that we will have some follow-up meetings here, Jason and I. This seemed to be a hit. We want to answer more of your questions, so please continue that. We did throw in the resources section a little takeaway for you just so we could try to summarize what Jason just went through on that slide. We did put it in a document so that you can kind of look at it and say, okay, I see how he opened here. I see how he went into problem. I see how he went into solution. Grab that. That'll be in an email after because we want to get you something tangible to take away. Jason, closing statements as we wrap.
I appreciate everybody taking an hour to tune in. Obviously, the demand is there. The main reason, there's a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety. I've been there. Anybody watching who claims they've never had trepidation about picking up the phone is not telling the truth. I hope this is the beginning of 2, 3, 4, 5 webinars where we'll walk through and we'll have dialogue. This has been tremendous. We'll walk through how to craft the reason for the call, which is the pain. I got pain. Here's the solution. Let's come together and meet. How about this time or that time? And by the end of a few short months, you'll realize that giant, sales training manual that's that big, the one that's keeping you up at night, it's really, most of it, not all, but most of it is an absolute waste. You can get to the point today. You can touch on the pain. You can say, hey, I've got a solution for that. Can we just get together here or there? It's that simple. So thank you very much for having me. Gabe, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, well, you were not done, guys. Tune in later. There will be more from Jason. Thanks, everybody. We'll let you go. Do grab us. Continue the conversation on LinkedIn. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.
Thank you.